Imagine a world where every country on the planet adopts a strict one-child per family policy. This is a world where families, no matter where they live, are legally allowed to have only one child. The idea of limiting births to just one child per family is not new. China famously implemented a version of this policy for decades in an effort to curb its population growth. But what if this policy were adopted universally across every nation, regardless of culture, economy, or political system? What would happen to the world's population, economies, societies, and the very fabric of human life? To fully understand the implications of such a sweeping and unprecedented global policy, we need to explore multiple facets: demographic changes, economic consequences, social and cultural impacts, environmental effects, geopolitical shifts, ethical questions, and potential unintended outcomes. Starting with demographics, the most immediate and obvious effect of a one-child policy would be a dramatic decrease in birth rates worldwide. With every family restricted to one child, the natural growth rate of populations would plummet. Countries with currently high fertility rates, like many in Africa and parts of Asia, would see sharp declines in population growth. Even nations with already low fertility rates, such as Japan, Italy, or Germany, would see populations rapidly decline. Within just a few decades, the world's population, which currently exceeds 8 billion people, would start shrinking. The global population might peak and then enter a prolonged decline. This demographic shift would cause profound ripple effects across economies and societies. Economically, fewer children mean fewer future workers. The labor force would shrink, impacting productivity, innovation, and economic growth. Industries dependent on younger workers might face shortages and higher labor costs. Social safety nets, pensions, and healthcare systems, all of which rely on a stable or growing working-age population, would come under immense strain as the proportion of elderly people increases relative to younger generations. In many countries, the one-child policy would accelerate population aging. With fewer children born, the median age of populations would rise quickly. This would mean a smaller base of working adults supporting a growing elderly population. Governments might struggle to fund pensions, healthcare, and elder care services. This demographic imbalance could lead to increased taxes on workers or cuts in benefits, potentially causing social unrest. Socially and culturally, the one-child policy would reshape family structures around the world. Parents, grandparents, and extended families would focus all their hopes and resources on a single child. This intense concentration of attention could lead to increased pressure on that child to succeed academically, professionally, and personally. On the other hand, some children might feel isolated, missing the companionship of siblings. Traditional family dynamics would be altered. In cultures where larger families are the norm, the policy could create significant tension between societal expectations and legal restrictions. Gender imbalances could also emerge, especially in societies with a cultural preference for male children. The practice of sex-selective abortions or infanticide could increase, exacerbating gender ratios. This imbalance has already been seen in countries with previous one-child or low fertility policies and could lead to social challenges, including increased rates of bachelorhood and social instability. Environmental impacts of a global one-child policy might initially appear positive. A declining population could reduce pressures on natural resources, lower carbon emissions, decrease deforestation, and lessen pollution. The Earth's ecosystems might recover as human demands lessen. However, some experts caution that a shrinking population could also negatively impact economic vitality and innovation, which are important drivers for sustainable development and technological solutions to environmental problems. With fewer young people entering the workforce, investment in green technologies and environmental protection could decline. Politically and geopolitically, countries with shrinking populations might lose influence on the world stage. Declining populations could translate to smaller markets, reduced military capacity, and diminished geopolitical clout. Nations that maintain higher birth rates might gain relative power and influence. At the same time, the global adoption of a one-child policy would require unprecedented international cooperation and enforcement. This raises ethical questions about personal freedoms, human rights, and government overreach. How would governments enforce such policies? Would there be penalties for non-compliance? Could families circumvent the law by hiding children or moving to countries with laxer rules? The psychological and societal consequences of enforced reproductive limits could be profound. Parents might experience grief or trauma from being unable to have more children. Societies might see shifts in values about family, community, and individual rights. Furthermore, a one-child policy could drive illegal practices such as black market adoptions, child trafficking, or underground pregnancies, creating new social and legal challenges. In education and workforce development, fewer children would mean smaller school cohorts and potentially higher investments per student. Educational systems might become more focused on quality than quantity. However, fewer workers entering the job market could reduce economic dynamism and innovation. Technological advancement might suffer as the pool of young talent shrinks, potentially slowing progress in critical fields such as medicine, engineering, and science. Healthcare systems would face new challenges as the aging population increases demand for chronic disease management, long-term care, and geriatric services. In terms of urban planning and housing, a shrinking population might reduce demand for new construction, potentially lowering housing prices but also leading to urban decay in some areas. Cities designed for growing populations might face infrastructure underutilization. Global migration patterns could shift dramatically. Countries facing severe labor shortages might seek immigrants, but with a worldwide one-child policy, the supply of migrants would also decline. This could strain economies that rely heavily on immigration. The cultural landscape of the world could change as well. Artistic and cultural expression might evolve as societies grapple with aging populations, changing family norms, and shifting values about reproduction and legacy. The environment might initially benefit from reduced human pressure, but long-term sustainability will depend on balancing population, economic vitality, and technological innovation. The policy would also raise deep philosophical questions about human rights and reproductive freedom. Should governments have the authority to limit the number of children families can have? How do we balance individual freedoms with global sustainability? What values would underpin such policies? In conclusion, a global one-child per family policy would be one of the most radical and transformative changes in human history. While it could alleviate some environmental pressures and slow population growth, it would also present enormous economic, social, ethical, and political challenges. This hypothetical scenario invites us to think deeply about population, resources, human rights, and the future of society. It highlights the complex trade-offs involved in managing our planet's growth and well-being. Thank you for watching this comprehensive exploration of what might happen if every country adopted a one-child policy. Please like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth discussions on global futures, societal trends, and policy impacts.